On the 21st of October 2021, on a movie set in the New Mexico desert, actor Alec Baldwin was handed a gun. The weapon was cold, he was informed, meaning that it was safe to handle and could not fire a live round. It had been brought to set by a trained armourer and inspected by the assistant director. There were no plans for Baldwin to pull the trigger during the scene. And yet, just minutes later, a shot rang out, bringing cast and crew running. 2 people lay wounded on the ground, shot with a weapon that it should not have been possible to fire during a scene where there was no reason for it to be fired. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. Since the early days of Hollywood, filmmakers have used real weapons during productions in an effort to increase authenticity and realism. While fake prop weapons are now readily available, the practice continues. However realistic a prop firearm might be, they almost always differ somewhat from the real thing. Their weight, the way they handle, the sounds they make, and the way in which actors interact with them. All of these things may not be quite right with a prop weapon. The use of real weapons has resulted in a number of accidents throughout the long history of film and television, such as in 1915 when background actor Charles Chandler was killed during the production of the silent film The Captive. Real bullets had been used earlier in the production, before the crew switched to blanks for some close-up shots. One actor failed to clear their weapon of a live round, and Charles Chandler became the first recorded victim of a firearms accident on a movie set. In later years, there would be more. Actor John Eric Hexum would pass away in 1984 after playing with a weapon loaded with blanks during the filming of the television series Cover Up. Blanks are bullets with the projectile part removed. Thus, when fired, a blank will create a convincing noise and muzzle flash, but will not actually shoot a projectile. Blanks are usually designed to be visually distinct from live rounds. Hexum had been playing with the weapon without realizing that blanks, although they lack a projectile, still explode with enough force to cause serious injury at close range. When the weapon discharged, he was killed almost instantly. These and other accidents over the years have led to the adoption of a range of safety measures that are employed when using guns on a movie set. Weapons may be disarmed completely, or modified so that they can only be loaded with blanks. Weapons are kept locked away when not in use and are checked multiple times by multiple people each time they are used. Most productions will have a strict rule that no live ammunition at all is to be brought into the production area, to prevent any possibility that blank rounds are confused with live ones. On top of this, scenes will be planned so that no person is directly in front of a weapon when it is to be fired, with directors using a range of camera tricks to film scenes where it looks like this is the case. Any production that uses functional firearms must employ a trained armourer, responsible for inspecting, maintaining, and keeping all guns secure. On the 21st of October 2021, filming was underway at Bonanza Creek Ranch in New Mexico for an indie western movie titled Rust. The film would follow a young boy who flees from the law after accidentally shooting a rancher. The production had been a troubled one. Throughout, there had been dissatisfaction amongst the crew about late payments and problems with hotel accommodation. There had also been complaints about safety on set, with some crew members alleging that safety precautions concerning firearms were not being properly followed. Indeed, there had been 2 accidents with firearms on set already. In the first, a stunt performer had accidentally fired a weapon loaded with blanks twice while rehearsing a scene, after having been told that the firearm he'd been handed was cold and thus could not actually fire. In the second accident, a prop supervisor accidentally discharged a firearm loaded with blanks into her own foot, causing mild injury. Neither accident had been properly reported or investigated, and filming had continued without pause. Dissatisfied with this and other issues, several camera operators walked out on the morning of the 21st, prompting the crew to alter the scenes they would film that day. Instead of filming their planned action sequence, They would instead film a scene in which the film's star, Alec Baldwin, sat in a wooden chapel and briefly pointed a weapon in the direction of the camera. He would be the only actor involved in the scene and would be filmed by a camera positioned about an arm's length away from him. There were no plans for the weapon to actually be discharged during the scene. Grouped together behind the camera were camera operator Reed Russell, director Joel Souza, cinematographer Helena Hutchins, and assistant director David Halls, with other crew nearby. The production's armourer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, brought a cart with a weapon on it onto set. This was a real weapon, modified to resemble an antique revolver. Gutierrez Reed presented the weapon to assistant director David Halls, who checked it over briefly and then handed it to actor Alec Baldwin. The crew began a rehearsal for the scene, as Baldwin handled the gun, following directions from cinematographer Helena Hutchins. The weapon discharged. A live bullet left the barrel, passed through Hutchins, and embedded itself in director Joel Souza's torso. Paramedics had been stationed nearby to respond to any accident during filming and arrived within 10 minutes. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was the most seriously injured. A helicopter was dispatched to transport her to hospital, while director Joel Souza was transported by ambulance. Joel Souza recovered. Helena Hutchins did not. She passed away as a result of her injuries as she arrived at hospital. Police carried out a forensic examination of the scene and seized all firearms on set. They found several hundred rounds of ammunition, almost all of them blanks. However, mixed seemingly randomly in with these blanks were 7 live rounds. It could not ultimately be determined how live rounds had become mixed in with blanks. 2 possibilities were considered likely. The first was that some crew members had been allowed to borrow weapons, take them off set, and use them with live ammunition for recreational shooting. When the weapons were returned, the live ammunition within them was accidentally mixed in with the blanks supplied for use in the filming of Rust. While several crew members publicly attested that off-set recreational shooting had happened, the police were not able to confirm this. The second possibility concerned the supply of ammunition to the production. Boxes of what were thought to be blanks were supplied by a number of sources, including armourer Hannah Gutierrez Reed herself. Some of these boxes were left over from other film productions. On these other film sets, actors had been trained with live ammunition to make their performances more authentic. As ammunition was moved between productions, it is possible that live rounds became mixed with blanks. The exact manner in which the live rounds arrived on the set of Rust remains uncertain. But this had not been the only failing. There were numerous other safety measures in place that should have prevented the tragedy. 3 individuals in particular were singled out for prosecution. Alec Baldwin, the actor who had been holding the weapon at the time, had received training in the safe operation of firearms. He should not have pointed a weapon, even a weapon he believed was not capable of firing, in the direction of a person. There was also no call for him to pull the trigger during the scene, but it appeared that he had done so nonetheless. Charges against Baldwin were ultimately dismissed, after police were found to have withheld evidence from the court. Assistant Director David Halls should have checked the gun much more thoroughly than he did, in order to be certain that it was loaded with blanks. He had not done so. Additionally, he had not proactively responded to the 2 previous accidents with firearms that had taken place on set. Had either of those accidents triggered a review of on-set safety, the fatal shooting of Helena Hutchins might never have happened. Halls reached a plea deal and was sentenced to 6 months of probation, a $500 fine, and 24 hours of community service. The person who bore the most responsibility, in the end, was armourer Hannah Gutierrez Reed. The safe use of weapons on set was her job. Typically, This would include inspecting each individual round loaded into any weapon, but she had clearly not done this. Other crew members working on the film alleged that Gutierrez-Reed engaged in a number of other unsafe working practices, specifically stating that they had seen her carrying several weapons at once, sometimes tucked under her arms, and that she had inadvertently pointed weapons in the direction of actors and crew while working. Some crew raised concerns about her general competence as an armorer. She was young and had only worked as the lead armorer on one other production before. There was speculation that she only got the job because she was the stepdaughter of a famous and well-respected Hollywood armorer, Thel Reed. Further to this, the time she had to complete her duties as armorer on the set of Rust had been limited, as she had also been assigned some prop supervisor duties. These took away from the hours she had to dedicate to her work as armorer. The situation then had been one of an inexperienced and overworked armorer failing to perform her duties on a movie shoot where previous accidents had been largely ignored. Ultimately, she was sentenced to the maximum possible 18 months in prison, on the basis of her having been the one who loaded the gun with live ammunition and repeatedly failed to check the ammunition that was used on set, despite it being an important part of her job to do so. The judge said, "You alone turned a safe weapon into a lethal weapon. But for you, Miss Hutchins would be alive." After a long pause in filming, and with the agreement of Halyna Hutchins' family, work on Rust eventually resumed in 2023. The film was released in 2024 and was met with middling reviews and took around $25,000 at the box office against a budget of $8 million. In the wake of this accident, several other productions decided to forego using functional weapons entirely, replacing them with replicas that could be further enhanced with CGI. A scholarship was established in Halyna's name to support female cinematographers through their training and education. She is survived by her husband and son, and remembered for her talent and enthusiasm by those who worked with her. In 2019, 2 years before her death, she had been selected as a rising star by the American Society of Cinematographers. What might have been a long and incredible career was, thereafter, cut short by an accident that could easily have been prevented.